Hi everyone. I am Amber Woods with Boston Enterprise, and today I have with me Josh Salyer. Josh, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Amber. So Josh Salyer, I am the Vice President of People Operations for Wasson Enterprise, and I've been working with we for about 3.5 years. And I am based just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, in Richmond. And married. I have two little boys that you may see over my shoulder there. And yeah, I guess just a little bit about me. So I'm a huge football fan of the University of Kentucky. I'm a bourbon geek, so I talk about that often and enjoy collecting and tasting and trying new bourbons, things like that. So I guess a little bit about me on a personal standpoint as well. But an HR professional is kind of what I've done. So did that about 15 years or so, and then for mostly large corporations and was with Amazon most recently before Wasson Enterprise, supported their customer service HR organization, and then moved over here. So I went from supporting about 11,000 people and across virtual customer service for Amazon to about 11 people at Wasson Enterprise. So it's been a big change and interesting journey, but yeah, happy to talk about work from home or anything else, Amber, you want to talk about today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that awesome intro, Josh. So, why don't we jump into some questions? We're going to be talking about working from home, what that's like, how that's changed during COVID. I apologize for noise in the background. I have cats. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
very
all
much
right.
a
We're
part
used to
of.
it. Work from
Yep.
home. We are used to that. Dog.
Exactly. Fur babies have become a very normal part of the whole work from home situation.
Yes.
So, you worked from home with Amazon and then transferred to Wasson, also working from home. So, what was that change like going from commuting to an office every day to working from home?
Yeah. So it's obviously a big change that a lot of people were forced into over the last year. Like you said, I've been doing that for about 4 to 5 years now total. And I love the flexibility. I can't imagine a situation like going back into a normal office because I've been doing this for a while now. But I do think that you have to continue to build those routines. And so I think people have probably had those in the office, whether that's you have that commute time to kind of get your mind right or think about what you've got coming up for the day, and that you get your coffee or you get your water and maybe you stop and chat with people. Like that's a routine that you build in a normal workplace. I think the same thing is true in a virtual work environment. So like what works for you? Do you roll out of bed and start to check your phone? Do you not look at anything and then like want to exercise or get ready for the day and then you come down to an office space? Like I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I think develop that routine that that works for you. And so I think that was key for me. It probably takes some time to figure out, but once you do that, then I think you can be successful in any environment and work from home environment.
Absolutely. I know the adjustment for myself was a little difficult, but I feel like I found my groove now. So that definitely feels good. So while working from home, what are a couple of your favorite things to have on hand to make your work from home life easier and more productive?
Yeah, I would say probably just the things you would want or have in a normal work environment too. But I think for me, definitely caffeine. Right, so I want my coffee handy
Of
especially
course.
in the mornings and plenty of it. Water, stay hydrated, stay healthy, and then I still will leverage, even though not so much as I used to, but still the traditional pen and paper, like have that handy to jot something down before. For me, if I don't write it down, it's not going to happen. So if I don't put it in my calendar, or I try to leverage notes. As we use Mac devices, which that's been good too, because then that's either on your phone or on your laptop, which is always handy. But still, sometimes there's no substitute for just the traditional pen and paper and jot something down so you don't forget it. So probably nothing groundbreaking there, but for me, I think those are just things you always have handy.
Absolutely. I think everybody has their favorite water bottle, favorite mug,
Yeah.
favorite pen to jot down notes. My desk
Yeah.
is always covered in sticky notes. Exactly.
Got the mug handy.
Exactly. So, how do you mentioned earlier about having that camaraderie when you get into the office and, having those coffee chats or small break chats with coworkers. So how do you maintain relationships with colleagues in a virtual environment?
Yeah, so I think you have to be purposeful with this, where maybe in a traditional work environment, it it kind of is happenstance a little bit where okay, everyone's getting to the office in the morning and then you're getting your coffee or you kind of that water cooler, you have to walk by someone's office to go to the bathroom. So you naturally will say hi to them. How's it going? Oh, I've been meaning to get with you. Let me talk about this. At Amazon, I had a kind of a standard routine of kind of just walking down the offices of my team members and kind of just staying in the doorway. How's it going? How was the weekend? How was your kid's little league game? Right. Like, so you don't have that in a virtual environment. So how do you connect then with inter-office communicators to just check in? And so I think you have to build those mechanisms where you're having conversations, you're celebrating birthdays and work anniversaries or sharing pictures of your kids on a Slack channel or your pets, right? And so I think we've done a good job of building those. But again, it probably feels a little more natural in a regular work environment where here you have to say, here's how I'm going to make sure I do that. And here's how we connect. So I would say just to focus on that and make sure you build those mechanisms that work for you in connecting with the team members.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know I like to pop in and just say hi every now and again, ask how coworkers are doing,
Yes.
and for us, we do certainly have the babies and fur baby Slack channel filled with pictures of pets and pictures of walks with little ones. And it is just a lot of love in one channel.
Yeah, but it helps just to stay plugged in and like, oh wow, I can't believe how big their kids have gotten. Which maybe you would see that when you go into their office and you see a picture or their wallpaper on their computer or something. So it's creating that same type of connection or reminder, but just in a virtual setting.
Absolutely. I would have to say some of yours are my favorites because they often come with stories of your kids.
Plenty of stories, yes. You won't believe what my kid did this week. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, speaking of kids, so after the pandemic started and the kids came home from school um, to have school at home, how did working from home change for you?
Yeah, so we would have a lot of conversations with people about, how's your work doing, or how are you making it work working from home. And so I was always kind of thinking about that. For nothing really changed for me except for the fact that others were here with me, and so then inherently became change if I had additional responsibilities. But yeah, so down the hall we set up an office or like a classroom for my kids in a spare bedroom, and so they're in there and then constantly, dad, come here. My teacher wants to talk to you. I can't find this paper. Will you check my work? And so it was, yeah. So I guess for me, it was more so everyone's home with me. My wife's working from home, who I came to realize and appreciate too, that, I've got the equipment at least to be able to work from home, where a lot of people were thrown into a situation where they just had to figure it out. And so I found myself very fortunate to work with someone that, one, made sure we were set up for success, but then two, they were really understanding and allowed us to, do what we had to do because our kids are home working or, doing Zoom school. So really hard for a third grader and a kindergartner to be doing Zoom classrooms. That created some challenges.
Yes, yes. We have heard all the stories. Yes,
Yes.
it is certainly something when you have younger children or babies, that, maybe the daycare closed down for a while and you reach
Yeah.
out to family to babysit, or, you do have to play, professional, and then sometimes, teacher's aid when the home learning is a thing. And those are always very interesting situations, I'm sure.
Yeah, I didn't expect to have kindergarten teacher as any of my titles at any point in my career, but yeah, I definitely have a new appreciation for what they do. They are underpaid, without a doubt.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, in your words, how did things change for the rest of the company, meaning Watson Enterprise, when we changed to virtual first? And explain a little bit about what virtual first is for us.
Yeah, so I think a lot of companies, the pandemic made us reevaluate why we were doing certain things. When did we really need to be in an office? When was that required? When was that a nice to have? When was it not really necessary? And so I think about this time last year, when we were all, a lot of us did work from home, but even then we completely shut down the office and no one went in at all. And then we started to have the conversation of, like, does this work? And we're a small team. Why do we need to commute into the Chicago office for those that worked around the area? And you're right, we did make the conscious effort to say, you know what, we're going to become a virtual first company. And for us, what that means is that we're going to ask ourselves when we need to be in person. And when we are, then we'll do that, whether that's traveling in from another state or whether that's, commuting in. But we really looked at it in three aspects. So one, people have what they need to be successful from home? Is that equipment? Is that from an ergonomics standpoint? So we wanted to make sure we felt like we were good there. Two was office space. And so, like, how much do we need? Do we need to, like, hoteling options where someone could come in and sit versus a dedicated desk? How many conference rooms do we need? How often would we use them? And then third was communication. So I think that does change when you're not in that office every day and you're not walking by people and you're not, for some of us, traveling every month and getting a couple of days in the office. So what has to increase or decrease or change so we're connecting and communicating effectively? And so we spend a lot of time talking about that and communicating that and getting feedback. And we now feel like we're set up to continue to work from home, and that's kind of our first option. And then we'll connect and we'll be in person, as appropriate or as we need to.
Absolutely. I definitely think the innovation that has come up since last year around how people communicate virtually with their teammates has been amazing. And we set up, donut calls. So every month, we talk to a different teammate randomly and have those connections. And everybody, aside from that, still has their one-on-one check-ins. And um, I myself make sure that I'm always speaking with Betsy probably about once a month. And we always tell each other what we're watching on Netflix, what books we're reading,
Yeah.
and give suggestions. So those things are definitely always helpful to stay connected and to keep spirits up, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. When you mentioned those donut calls, I think that's a perfect example of like a mechanism we put in place. And it was your idea. It's been a really good idea too. It's just, I think we always make small talk at the beginning of every conversation. So you get on a one-on-one or you're getting onto a team meeting and people will be like, how was your weekend? Or how are the kids? Or I'm not feeling very well, or, whatever. Like, you just have that kind of 1 minute of real conversation and then you jump into the topic. And this is a meeting set aside to where you're not allowed to talk about work. And it's 30 minutes randomly paired with someone once a month to just get to know them, just to have small talk about your kids, talk about what's going on in your personal life, whatever you want to share. And it's it's a good mechanism to encourage building those connections that you may get in a regular workplace.
Right. Just be human.
Yes.
So, um, how is Watson Enterprise managing virtual first and keeping up with the working relationships and team building and team morale? I know that we touched a little bit on that just now, but do you want to
Yeah.
expand a little bit more?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the mechanisms you put in place are part of it, like we talked about the donut calls, but also the communication, the cadence in which you're talking. So whether that's one-on-one, whether that's a weekly or biweekly status, that's a quarterly strategy session. which maybe, I think for us, we want to do that in person, and we hope to get back to that soon because we still think there's value in adding in-person communication and connection. But I think just evaluating those overall, like what is that strategy? At what points are you connecting and communicating what part, what information? And so, yeah, I think really just evaluating that. And then also you've got your inner office communication, your email, to also, share information, but also just to celebrate the birthdays or just more fun items. So I think just making sure you've got those various mechanisms in place is a good way to ensure that you can be successful in a work from home, virtual first environment.
Absolutely. I know that we have also included happy hours. Keeping those fun has been a challenge, but I
Yeah,
think finding new games to play and Jeopardy and kind of exploring what's out there on the internet to do as a team has been very fun and interesting for everyone to kind of experience.
yeah, no, I agree. I think, and you've done a good job of keeping those fresh, and that's important because if you just say, well, we're going to have a happy hour every other week or once a month, and you get on there, I think if you don't make adjustments or tweak those or change them or really encourage participation, you'll see that people aren't really getting the benefit out of it, or maybe they stop coming. So I think keeping those fresh, that's important to continue to reevaluate what you're doing, measure the success of it, and then adjusting as appropriate.
Absolutely. So any advice for others that are going through similar situations and transitions, which are a lot of us, or people who may not be returning to the office post COVID?
Yeah, well, I think it's not a one size fits all, right? I think you have to evaluate what works for your organization, and it's really important that the CEO, the executive team supports and believes that this can be successful. And so, were you doing this just to get by, and you really think that your team communicates most effectively, in the office, or part of the team's bought in and part of the team hates it? I think one thing that we've done too is being virtual first. We probably didn't talk about this, but we also have just really been flexible. And so there may be some roles that we need to be in the office, but there may be some team members that say, I want to be in the office. I don't have a lot of space at home, or I don't think really well if I don't get out, and kind of can just be out of my normal at home environment. And so I think the other thing we were open to was just listening to our employees and being flexible. And that's a big part of it too, is making sure people are bought in, and that when you can provide a space that they're going to be most successful in. So I think between that and then just again creating those mechanisms, evaluating it, we do have a kind of a pulse check and office vibe survey that we do once a week, really quick, like less than a minute, and we can evaluate the culture and people getting the right type of communication. Do they feel empowered to do their job? They have what they need, and that's a good way to measure that success and continue to adjust based upon what that feedback is telling us.
Awesome. And the last question is, are there any helpful learnings that you have learned in this last year that you could share on a personal level?
Last year, I would say pants with buttons are overrated. I think working from home the last year, you don't need, you got your gym shorts, jogging pants, you're good. But no, no, probably really on a more serious note, I guess. I would think back over the last year and say that I think live for success is probably, kind of that same 10% of what happens to you and 90% how you react to it.
Mhm.
And I think over the last year, there was a lot of really challenging times, and hopefully something we never have to live through again. But I think we adjusted. We were able to figure it out. There were some things that came through this and kind of forced innovation or forced us to think differently. And so there's some positives. So how do you learn from that? Adopt those and continue to carry those forward because that works for us. And so it challenged the way we were thinking. So I would say, regardless of what comes, hopefully it's not, in the coming year, something not as bad as 2020. But how do you continue? There are things that are out of your control. So how do you just continue to learn and react positively to those things that happen that are unexpected?
Absolutely. To your point, I am definitely wearing pajama pants on the bottom right now.
Same. Jogging pants. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say the one thing that I've learned really over this last year, or a point that was really driven home to me, is that everybody's human. And I think that came out a lot more over this last year. And I think that was honestly for the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we learned a lot about ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me, Josh. And have a happy Thursday.
All right. Thanks, Amber. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Josh. Bye.
All right. Bye.